So thanks so much for tuning in for another episode of the Hart to Heart podcast. Today I'm really excited for my guest. My guest is Ed Latimore. If you're not following him on Twitter, please go ahead and do that right now. He's absolutely one of my favorite follows on Twitter. I've been following him for a long time. He's got a lot of good advice out there on mental health, fitness, stoicism. Follows a lot of the things that I follow, and I really encourage you guys to follow him on Twitter. So, Ed, do you mind just starting off by telling us just a little bit about yourself, and then I'll start asking you some of the tougher questions.
Yeah, sure, no problem. By the way, I just when the logo came up before we started kind of recording and talking, I was like, man, what a great name! Your last name was Hart and Hart to Heart. It just worked out perfectly. Uh, yeah, I'm at Lattimore. I'm currently 35. I'll be 36 on Monday. It's kind of cool. Really cold up here. Dealing with for my birthday and everything. But I just bring that up to reference a lot of things that I'll say and talk about because there's a large life that I led prior to 27, and a lot of good things really happened, but a lot of bad things, and there was some big setbacks, and I wasn't making moves, and a lot of it was my fault. And then at 27 I had a wake up call, and the part of that wake up call was getting sober. That was the biggest wake up call, and that led me to on a chain reaction of other things, because once I was sober, I was able to go to school and return to school, and my boxing career really took off, and then I started writing about it, and people were like, "Oh, this is great stuff. You're really helping," and that motivated me to write a book about my sobriety. And I went from at 27. I mean, I had a friend letting me stay in a room in his house for $200 a month, and that was still a little steep, man. And I had a job working at a retail place, and it was a very uncomfortable life. Probably the coldest winter I've ever experienced, because it was inside cold, and the heat also was a little low, to save money, to me leaving and never looking back and things looking great. And I would say in the past, I haven't had a drink in now in 7 years or something like that. Yeah, my 7 year sobriety anniversary was in December. We're coming up on 8 years now. Yeah, it'll be 8 years this December, and everything in my life has improved. I've got like a college degree. I've got money. Um, I'm healthy. Haven't been hungover in a long time. Great relationship. Just got engaged. Now, granted, I took a very long time because I'm that guy. But 8 years, 8 years. I'm
Christy
pretty sure
appreciates
she's not.
that.
Yeah, pretty sure she's not going anywhere after 8 years. Plus, I want citizenship to Portugal, so there's that. So no, but that's a joke. I always tell her that, like, I'm marrying her for a green card, but no, I'm really happy in everything in my life, and I think I'm a good person to study and learn from, because this position right now, if you had looked at how my life was going prior to the age of 27, you would not think that I would be here now. And sometimes
Yeah, I
I don't think that.
I think that's why you have such, a big following online, and why people, interact and engage with you so much, is because you have a really good sense of talking about a lot of subjects that people are uncomfortable talking about, and also to putting some practical, advice out there for people. Like, a lot of the advice that you put out on your Twitter are things that people don't necessarily want to hear, but it ends up being, really good advice. Same with your blogs. But just to, before we get into a little bit, like, I know that you're a 13-1-1 as a boxer. Pretty awesome record. So when did you start boxing, and when did you become professional?
I started boxing at 22. Very it's ancient age, man. I decided I needed to do something, because I've gone through these kind of, like, looking at my position in life, going, okay, things aren't going well. I need to do better for myself, and then building on that. And for the most part, that was a big turning point when I decided to box, and what we talked about around 27. But that one was, I needed something to do. I felt like I actually had a conversation. I was dating this girl, and her mom was a college professor, and I had already been kicked out of college once, and it wasn't really going well for me. I was working at Starbucks, and but I was on this anti-college raid, and she was like, one day she just got tired of hearing about it as a college professor would, and she goes, what have you done over the past 4 years? Let's pretend you're right. What have you done over the past 4 years instead of college, other than coming to my house and eat my food? And I was like, man. And then she threw me out, and I cried a little man tear for a minute. But then I said, you're exactly right. I have not done anything to kind of show I've got time on this planet. And I was looking at things to do, and I said, let me try this fighting thing out. This looks cool. This might have some potential. And so I walked into a gym at 22, and my attitude was, I'm not going to quit. I'll either get beat out the sport, or somebody's gonna be like, "Yo, this like who knows?" I'm like, "This is just not for you. You're not getting better." And fortunately, I had little success, and it just kept snowballing. And before you know it, as an amateur, I won a state title, I won a national title. I had a national ranking before I turned professional. I turned pro January 26th, 2012. That sounds right. So January 6th, 2012, turned pro, and just been did I say 2006? I meant 2011. I always get the days confused. Not six. That's weird. Uh, but but yeah, turn pro then, and so I think I spent, what does that work out to, 22, like 5 years amateur, 4 or 5 years.
Right on. And are you still boxing today, or like just hitting the?
Okay, so this is so what is my relationship status with boxing? That's a great question. Okay, so I had like more or less decided that I was just done. Not for any reason, but mainly opportunity cost, because at this point in my life, I make a great living and I don't have to get hit doing it. And that's really what it comes down to. And I can have a much bigger impact, much greater reach. I can travel whenever I want to. These are things you can't do. And also, you don't really make that much money boxing. Don't believe the hype. Everyone sees Floyd Mayweather and thinks we're all like close to that. Like, nah, man. Most of us, most fighters, um, probably, in fact, not probably. Most fighters I've met have had jobs, because you got to you don't just don't make enough.
And it's the
And
same thing with the UFC too. I mean, those a lot of those guys are broke. Like
yeah,
they don't get paid very much. And yeah, I mean, unless you're Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather, you usually have to pick up a second job. Maybe
absolutely. And you're
John
beat
Jones
up. It's just a
can go
hard
too.
life. But what happened recently? Because so I've kept I keep myself in shape, because one, it just turned into a habit after training for so long, and two, is it's just better for you, especially as you age. And my coach is also Roy Jones Jr. coach, and he and Roy Jones had that fight with Tyson,
Yeah,
and he messaged me and he's like, "Hey, you think you could be some sparring for Roy, because your style and your build is similar to Mike Tyson." In fact, when I was fighting, we studied a lot of what Mike Tyson and Joe Frazier did, because they were guys that were a little shorter and undersized. So a lot of what they did is modeled after what I tried to do as a fighter and a heavyweight. And I said, sure, why not? Because I had already been like kind of toying with the idea of fighting again.
yeah,
So I went and I did a bit better than I thought I would, and that makes sense. I mean, I have a great teacher, Tom Yankilla. You can look him up. I'm really fortunate. I could have been anywhere in the United States, and I happened to be in the city with where Tom lives. So I had that great trainer, and then I fought, and I said, okay, I'm never gonna fight heavyweight again, because I'm tired. Like I don't have the skill to negate the size disadvantage I'll always be at as a heavyweight. So I said, if my weight comes down to 215 and I'm like actively lowering it to see where it goes, then I'll fight cruiser, because then at that point that's 15 pounds that'll just easily come off during a training camp or whatever. But that's where my relationship is. Have not had a sanctioned bout since 2016 December 16th. I think that day was. It was sometime in December. But
yeah.
but now
So,
I'm
So did you end up sparring with Roy for a bit to help you?
Oh yeah,
Cool.
that was pretty much what I did 2 days a week for like 8 weeks. There's all pictures all over my social media. Man,
That's
it was in great shape. Nah, man, he's fast,
awesome.
very fast. Even at 51, I got hit sometimes, and I didn't think I could get hit, and that's really surprising. It's one thing when you go back over it and you're like, oh, I did let my hands down, but I won't forget it because I had a pretty bad nosebleed during the sparring, and then it got reopened in the next sparring session. But the reason I got the nosebleed is he like stepped off and slipped a he stepped out of my line of attack and then slipped a hook through my guard. And I was like, how is that even possible? Like I'm not like if you get hit with a hook and your guard's up, it's supposed to be around the side of your face, not dead on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where I took it. And it was a vicious shot. I was like, wow, I'm in bad shape. But no, it was a good time. I mean, you learn how you get used to getting hit from doing it for years. You're just like, okay. Like you know when you're in danger and when you're just uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
was just very uncomfortable.
That's cool, man. That's awesome for that you got to spar with Roy and prepared him for that
Yeah.
fight. And we had a pretty good outcome. I think a draw against Tyson was pretty good. So hopefully he gives you a little bit of credit for his performance in
Oh
the
yeah, it was fun, man. I'm happy to have done it, and it re-sparked an interest. So I've kept myself in great shape. I haven't done anything to destroy my body. Still can go work out just fine. So, and on top of that, 30, 35, 36 is not particularly old in the fight game.
yeah.
I just have been doing other things. So I could actually, fight. When I fought, I was either in school, in the army, um, I had internships or jobs. So I never really got a chance to see how good I could get, just devoted. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. It won't break my heart if like all of a sudden my body's like, dude, we're just not going there. I'm like, all right, whatever, because this is a good life. But if it does, all right, let's go. Well, like that's my feeling about it.
That's awesome. And just to change gears a little bit, Ed, like I know you touched on it earlier, and a lot of your blogs and your books are about this topic. So, like, what made you stop drinking? Like, what was it specifically? Was it a specific moment? Was it something gradually? And what kind of benefits have you seen since
Uh,
you stopped?
so as far as what made me stop, it was just repeated cycle of being a degenerate, man. That's just all it comes down to. You can only wake up so many times looking at your phone, wondering who you pissed off, who you
Yeah,
said the wrong thing to, whose girl you hit on that you weren't supposed to talk to, like stuff that's supposed to be your friends. You can only do that so many times before something will change. And what will change is either your relationship with the people around you or your relationship with alcohol. You cannot have, I could not, and I don't think many people can have both
yeah,
at a high level, at least quality relationships, because that gets in the way. And then what made me do it? I came back from AIT and I went out. AIT is the advanced individual training that you go through after you finish basic training. Because I enlisted in the army late for so I could get some money to go to school. And I went out partying and I had a terrible night. Woke up at a friend's house. Didn't really remember how I got there, and I was just like, okay, this is out of control, and I got a real chance to change my life because I was enrolled in school. I was now in the army. I had enlisted as a professional, and I had just met the fiance. This was 8 years ago, and I said, I don't know what the future holds, but I know what's held me back in the past before. Let me get rid of that and see where my life goes. And that's where it started. And then, like all addicts, I had to trick myself. I said, I'll do this until I graduate or something like that, or until I won my 10th fight. By that time, I was so sold on everything that had happened in my life that I said, there's no way I can go back. And then I started writing about it, and
yeah.
people started responding positively, talking about, they wish somebody had talked about these things. And I was like, well, here we are, and I don't want to drink. I mean, I really like not like not like every now and then I'll be someplace and I'll be like, oh, it'd be cool to have like a glass of wine with this steak, but But I'm like, I'll just have some tea instead, or some sparkling water or Diet Coke. Like it's
Yeah.
not one of those things that I miss that badly to where I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go off the rails if there's a bottle of liquor in the house. She ordered like when we first moved into this apartment, she ordered this it's like a 12 pack of wine, and it's like the difference between normal people and people like me. She would that 12 pack of wine is still there. We're gonna be here for a year in April. 12, some of it's still there, not all of it. And
Yeah.
she can pour a glass, drink half the glass, and say that's it. And I'm like, what do you mean that's it? You open the bottle, you gotta finish it. And she's like, nah, that's it. Finish it, and then probably end up pouring it out. And but thinking about how I will respond in that same situation, that I know my relationship is exists because I never brought that element into it of my personality, and I'm really proud of myself for
So,
that.
so basically, Ed, like once you stopped drinking and you got all the benefits out of it, then you had it was kind of obvious. You didn't even try to continue to stop
Yeah,
drinking.
because
Let's
the
just keep
cool
doing
thing,
this. Like it's
yeah, the
better.
cool thing about my personality is like I wasn't like you don't have to sell me when something works. Like if I don't see it, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm healthier, people respect me, I got a good relationship with all the people in my life, I'm not like wasting time or money and making progress and everything.
Yeah.
And then I think back to what life was like when I was drinking. So like it's not a hard sell. The hard part is getting over that initial hump where you go, I have to admit to myself that there's something wrong. Um I have to face reality.
A lot of
Which
people would ask you, like, say if they stop drinking, they'll be like, okay, but what am I going to do for fun? Like, did you ever go through a period where you were like, okay, like what am I going to do for fun instead? Or did you pick up any sort of like new hobbies, something like that, like after you were drinking? Or
so the cool thing, and this was really by design, and then as I learned more about the sobriety community and things of that nature, I realized it was the best thing to happen to me. Is I chose to stop drinking right when my life became unbelievably busy, and that gave me because it's a habit. Sobriety's a habit, just as drinking is. That gave the habit time to strengthen without facing the temptation and the boredom that people typically associate with it. The problem, though, when people say there's nothing to do without drinking, that's just because they haven't. That or rather, that's just because in the West, anyhow, everything is centered around drinking.
yeah,
You like it's very hard to be that person. I got a buddy who doesn't really drink, and we almost never seen him out. And then when I stopped drinking, I was like, "Yo, you've been doing all this shit. Like you're so cool, you know, because it's a different world." I
yeah,
remember I went like for example, I was in Fort Worth like 2 years ago, and I had to flew down for dinner, and and my first thought was, I've got all this time to kill. Let me go to a museum. And I started looking up different museums, and I went to it was like the Alamo Museum in Texas. It was their claim to fame was was the uh the Alamo Museum that's the furthest west of the Mississippi or something like that, right? And I remember thinking it was just one of those moments. I was like, old me would have been like, where are the bars to drink before to kill some time? But instead, I went to a museum and I found a jazz club. And that's just how your mind starts to work. After you start finding things that you enjoy doing,
yeah,
and you don't need alcohol to enjoy doing them because a lot of people don't they are products of their environment.
yeah. I hear
And
you.
yeah, so once I but so the best part really, I mean, for probably a year when I first stopped drinking, I didn't have time to even socialize. I didn't really have time. Didn't even try to
And did
either.
you find that, like, when you stopped drinking too, you sort of got rid of like a lot of friends who were sort of dead weight, so to speak?
A funny thing happened, man. It it was like it was a polarizer. People who were on the fringe, or who were, and I found out there were some people kind of looking to who kept me around because I was not quite together. Oh, I lost them. And it's funny how you lose friends when you stop drinking. I didn't lose them immediately. I lost them after they realized I was serious about this. I had probably, I can think off the top of my head, four people who I thought I was okay with, and they were just like, all right, for whatever reason, well, I was like, you've been well within your rights to get rid of me when I was like being a fool around you, but now this is an issue, and I was like, okay, but it wasn't a big deal. But my good friends, the guys that I knew before I started drinking,
Yeah,
my friends from high school,
yeah.
nah, man, the relationship got better,
That's good. That's
and,
good.
and,
Yeah.
and
Because I
you
mean,
want
a
to know
lot of
why?
times people want to know that, like, if you have, like, a lot of people when they have a fault, they want to know that other people has that same fault because it makes them feel better about themselves,
Absolutely.
right? So like when you had a fault of drinking, then some of those people who shared that fault with you probably loved you, and they loved you because you were had a fault like them. Then you stop drinking, and then these guys kind of look at you as like, oh, Ed doesn't drink anymore, he doesn't share the same faults as we do, he thinks he's too cool for us, he thinks he's better than us. And then the relationship then just kind of goes in different ways.
Not only the same faults, but like it it disrupts the social status because here's the thing: if I had just stopped drinking and chilled out, whatever, right, I would just fade off. But there was a point where it became very obvious that I was not the same person. Not in terms of how I carried myself, not in terms of the what I had accomplished, etc. And that can rub people really the wrong way, and then they turn into lurkers. They look for a reason. They won't be around for a while because they can't come right out and say you're not a loser anymore, right? They lurk. Like the weirdest. I mean, some of the weirdest things that I've ever had people tell me that they couldn't be friends with me anymore for happened when I stopped drinking. But it's okay because these are people I wasn't like
Yeah.
super close to. Like there's no one I was like where I felt it, where I was like, man, I can't believe it. Like then a surprise, sure, but no one was like, man, this sucks. Like
Yeah.
nothing changed in my life,
So yeah, you lost people that weren't adding value to your life, and it sounds like you kind of
That
kept
is
people that
that
were.
is the best way to put it. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Perfect. Well, I one question too I want to ask you about, Ed, is like, I know you were featured on the Daily Stoic before, and like I in your blog you mentioned Stoic street smarts, and like when did you, and like Stoicism is something that I discovered in 2016. Actually, I was at a conference, and Ryan Holiday was actually there, and I got to meet him briefly. He was a really nice guy, really down to earth and humble, and especially for his status and what he's done. But he had a book, Ego is the Enemy. I read that book, absolutely loved it. Then I went back and read The Obstacles the Way, and I read his new one, or new-ish one, Stillness is the Key, which was released last year. That's a trilogy that he has. And I noticed that you kind of have a lot of stoicism in your quotes, in your Twitter feed. And I was just wondering, like, how did you come across stoicism, and how do you practice it every day in your life?
So stoicism found me. I didn't find it, man. And there's no better way to kind of put it because I I had a lot of leanings towards emotional in react or emotional non-reactivity growing up. And it probably a lot of it was necessity because I had to learn how to be emotionally non-reactive to my mom, who was really very emotional, and I had to figure out how to kind of navigate the attempts to emotionally manipulate me have things fall off the handle. And then also in my neighborhood where I grew up in a really rough area, man, in a public housing project with a lot of violence, a lot of problems, a lot of opportunities for confrontation and you have to the best way to win a fight is to not get in one in the first place, and that's kind of hard to do when people want to fight you, so you got to figure out a way to keep to deal. And what I learned is that when I keep myself in control, It's not a guarantee nothing's going to go down, but what I do is I can take a bad situation and make it not so bad, and I can keep an okay situation that might just be banter from escalating to the next level where my safety's in danger. And it just feels so natural to me because of that training, probably because of how I am genetically. And then as I got older, boxing really teaches you the power of not giving your emotions credence for your actions, or rather, not giving your emotions uh, control over your actions. I think if I could summarize stoicism with my level of understanding of it down to kind of one idea, one sentence, I tell people that the difficulty of a task is irrelevant if it's vital to your success. And that sums up for me what stoicism is and my approach to it, because it doesn't matter how you feel about the thing if the thing needs to be done or not done. Either way, you don't make moves, especially important moves, based on how you feel.
Okay.
You based on, and that is really changed. I think a lot, like even going as far as a sobriety, right? Um, my no one came to me and was like, you're a bit of an a-hole. I heard some things on the through the grapevine, but the decision, there was no intervention staged, whatever. I looked at it practically. Like, when I looked at it, it was a practical decision. I weighed out the four things in my life that had potential to really make a difference in the long term. I looked at what kept me from making progress in the past, and I said, we're going to get rid of the alcohol. And that was, to me, even though they're small factors. I don't want to say it didn't play a role, but yeah, I mean, I found out my reputation and my behavior is starting to get me blacklisted around certain people. I'm like, all right, that's a big deal. That is a problem. But what drove the decision was a very practical, emotionless um, evaluation of what had to be done, and that's how I like to approach everything. Because I figure like this, like I'm not saying don't experience emotion. People
Yeah.
people hear that sometimes.
I
What I'm
think people
saying,
get stoicism mixed up because they think that it's experiencing no emotion. And what we're trying to do is just, basically keep the good emotions and then negate or minimize the bad emotions. And like, would you say that, when you're, I remember reading in one of your books or one of your blogs that you said like, even when you like don't want to kind of spar or whatever, sometimes you think about certain things or you have certain quotes in your mind, and then that kind of forces you maybe to like keep going or not to quit, that type of thing.
yeah, and it's really it's just weird. I wish I could like create a picture of this, because it I can see it kind of clearly, and then I gotta put it in words. The idea is like, I have feelings. I am sad. I am angry. Whatever, right? But I have my existence in the world and the duties and obligations here in this plane. And I know that if I want to have a great life here, one free of problems, then that is that, like, I can't give in to how I feel in the moment. I can't do it. That, it's like an analogy I give. I used to make it's a little joke, but it's worth thinking about it too. And I used to say, marrying someone just because you love them is the same as killing someone just because you're angry, because one day your emotion may not be as strong, but you're still going to have to live with the consequences of your decision. So you should probably find something a bit more practical to base these decisions around, or not do it, right? And
Absolutely.
that's how I look at all of it. How I look at stoicism. It's not that I'm not feeling. I just won't let it influence the action. I can, sometimes the action like reflects that. Like, but I'm at like for I mean I got a bag of ginger snaps here. They're not. I mean, part of them. My girlfriend bought those. I mean, right? And
Yeah.
and I could sit there and eat them all day
Yeah.
because they feel good. They taste great.
Yeah.
Not really gonna help me in my goal, right?
Yeah. I
Something
understand
that
you.
simple.
And you've had a couple really good blogs recently. There was one on how to let go of the past, and how to forgive. And you
Oh
talk.
wow, you really I love that, man, that you do. Those are like really important topics to me and you read
Yeah,
those.
no, they're really important talks, because I think I have a lot of patients and people I've met in my life who have PTSD, have been diagnosed with PTSD. A lot of them were in the military, like yourself, and I mean, you Ed, like you grew up in the hood, basically. Very very difficult environment. Very very difficult life. But you would say that you don't have PTSD. I mean, I don't think you would even meet the criteria closely for it in some ways.
Not e
And
Yeah.
there's also something called post traumatic growth, which we should be talking about, probably more than PTSD. And like I feel like you're someone who's experienced a lot of post traumatic growth, meaning that what was difficult in your life has actually, in fact, made you a stronger person because of it. Like, would you say that happened to you in your life?
Absolutely. It's a, the concept of anti-fragility that Nassim Taleb talks about, where some systems break down under stress, they're fragile. Some systems resist stress, they're robust or resilient. And then there are some systems that have grow stronger because of stress, and those are the anti-fragile systems. But what you said about the PTSD is really interesting. I was doing some research for an article or a book that I thought I wanted to write, and part of that research was just looking into the stats on kids in poverty and the outcomes in the criminal system for those who grow up in public housing, single mothers, etc. And they talked about I guess the researcher in the comparison of surveys and I think neurochemical analysis, maybe they didn't go that far, but definitely surveys, the effect of being raised in a violent a poor violent neighborhood is tends to leave people who make it through with the same residual effect psychologically as those who come out of a war zone. And when I read that, I was like, okay, I think about the things I saw that I've kind of normalized. I think about some of the weird habits I have and I've had to work through, and I'm like, okay, I can see this. Like it's not. I would never go as far as to compare my experience to someone who voluntarily signed up to go beyond the wire and have bullets flying around them and witness people die. But like I think like, I've got a crystal clear memory of watching a kid get killed when I was 3. Like that's kind of nutso. Like because most people like if you ask most people, they're not gonna go, oh yeah, I've seen someone get killed before.
Yeah,
Like that's not a normal experience. And,
yeah,
I got experiences, being jumped and having guns pulled on me. Like these are like normal things, right? Or I thought they were normal anyhow for a long time. And maybe that's the biggest difference is you think it's normal. But as far as like how that affects my growth and perspective on things, I just know that um, it it can become better
yeah.
because I'm not where I grew up. I watched a lot of people not be where they grew up. I got the seed of hope and ambition planted in me somehow, some way, and I didn't want to be there. And what it does is it creates this weird feeling of guilt because I go, okay, on the one hand, I busted my ass. No one can say I didn't work to change my situation in life. But then I have to think, did I just get lucky? Did I get lucky in the experiences? Did I get lucky in being 6'1" and being athletic? Did I get lucky being smart? Are these? I mean, granted, it is luck. I mean, I have to act upon the opportunities and not get myself arrested or something. But
Mhm.
it really sometimes it makes me think about all the people who are average and they're born into suboptimal conditions, and by virtue of being average it is going to be almost impossible for them to conceive of a way out of it.
And
And
it
even if
seems
they
like you're very grateful for the attributes that you were born with, right? Like, yeah, you're 6'1", so you're a little bit taller than most dudes. Obviously, being a professional boxer, like most people, even if they worked really hard, are not going to be 13 and 1 heavyweight boxers. And if you have a physics degree, like a lot of people, definitely can't.
Right. Like these
That,
are
right?
I think about this so much.
Yeah.
And the end ultimately what I can do, all I can do is be grateful to the point where like when people ask me about, like someone asked me about my boxing career today at the gym, and I just, the first thing I said was like, man, you gotta understand, I just was really lucky. And it's just automatic to even think that. It was like, because I was, I mean, I think about like, yeah, I had to train, but like a lot of opportunities came down the pike that I had to put myself in position to take advantage of. But they came down. I didn't like summon them. They were there, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's see what happens. And so I never lose sight of the role of luck, and
And
it makes me so
also too,
grateful.
and like you're not bitter about your past at all. Like it seems like
I
you have.
was at one point.
Well, you were at one point, but right now you're not. And like, you've written, some beautiful blogs on forgiveness. And I encourage everyone to go to edlatimore.com and read some of his blogs. But like, you have this one line where you say, justice maintains order in the world, forgiveness maintains order in the soul, which I thought was, really, really powerful, meaning that, if someone wrongs you, of course, they should, have some consequences for wronging you. But you're also trying to work on yourself, and you don't want to hold on to that bitterness. So if you don't mind, I know it might be a little bit personal, but what is your sort of like personal forgiveness process, so that you're not bitter about the things that happened in the past, and how did you kind of become this like grateful person that you are today?
I wonder if I put it in the blog. I know it's a newsletter that modified that motivated that kind of idea. But my mom was like, I mean, it's funny. My whole perspective on it has changed. So it's even hard for me to say it now. But like, my mom got a lot of things wrong, got a lot of things right, got a lot of things wrong, right? And my sister and I were on very different paths in life, and I think a big part of that is that at some point, those lucky gifts I had clicked, and I was able to take advantage of things, and my sister not so much, and she probably needed to be raised a little more, whatever, right? But I remember when I went to high school. That was the first time I got to see different people, because all the people I went to elementary school, middle school with, they were all from the same neighborhood and the
Okay.
same background. But high school was the first time I got to spend like just time and time and time again with them. And slowly but surely, I just got really bitter. I got bitter because I was like, why would you like have kids and you can't give us anything, and you have all these issues and we're broke, and so like I really like it just bubbled over, and it started to influence my interaction with her right around 17 or 18, to the point, I didn't spend much time at home. And one day, by just the grace of luck, I stumbled upon this book, A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles, ACIM, is this book that's basically a textbook of forgiveness. There's a theoretical part and then a practical part, and whether you want to believe the story of how it came to be, which for the record is that Jesus himself uh, took possession of a woman and wrote it down. I don't I don't really care about that part. What I do care is about how it made me look at the world. It fundamentally changed how I saw things. And the first thing I did was I thought my way through it. And I said, okay, I'm here. And there are some good things, Mom, I learned from my mom and what she got to me. There's a lot of bad, but I changed what I looked at. So I was able to look at what I benefited from. That was part of it. I also realized that part of my animosity was that I believed that a better decision could be made. But then I started to think, if I was her in the exact same position with the exact same knowledge, faced with the exact same choices, I would have done the same thing, right? And that's a really powerful, humbling thing to realize, that you're not really any different than the person who you're holding a grudge against or resentment against. You're the same. The only difference is maybe you have different knowledge, you're at a different time point, hindsight is 2020, etc. But if you can go, I understand how you did that and how you came to that conclusion. And there's always a reason. And then the base reason it's hard to get to when you think about it. But if you do think about it, you'll see it in everything. People aren't really doing anything to screw anyone over per se. They're doing things to benefit themselves and what they feel like is going to make them feel better. And once you look at the world that way, then all of a sudden there's another shift. You stop seeing things as personal attacks, as intentional mishaps, and you just see it as part of being human. And you also realize that you do the same thing. And so to have a grudge against another person is to have a grudge against yourself. And
Man,
so,
there's so much beautiful stuff in there, Ed, that you just said. Like, I love how you said, like, you're holding a grudge against yourself when you're holding, a grudge against someone else, because, that's really what the forgiveness process, is all about. It's really about, making sure that you're not holding on to, someone else and what they've done to you. And, the what they've done to you is gone. And like that time, can't be, you can't get that back, unfortunately. But when you are able to forgive, then that person is not holding on, rent space in your head, so to speak, for any longer, and you're able to kind of let go. And I know you've talked about in your blog too about like how, forgiveness isn't about like reaching out to the other person or making amends with the other person. I mean, it may be in certain instances, but for the most part, it's really just a personal process, and making sure that you're sort of, not holding on to that grudge, and making sure that you're forgiving that person. And then the other thing that you said too that was, beautiful, was about, looking at things from the other person's point of view. And it
right,
seems like as soon as you do that, you kind of stop this feeling of judgment, and you look at things from the other person's other view, and then you begin to understand them. So instead of judging, a place of judgment, you go to a place of understanding. When you go to a place of understanding,
yeah,
that's where you can forgive someone. But when you're judging someone, there's no way you're ever going to be able to forgive that person, and you're always just going to like hold on to that bitterness, and that bitterness is just going to take up, rent space in your head, and it's going to hold you back, and it's not going to allow you to, pursue the things that you want to do. So, I really liked how you put that. And one of your blogs too, like again, like just going back to subjects that like people don't want to talk about, and you talk about them, all the time. But you said you had a blog recently about, four signs it's time to end a friendship. And I was just wondering, like, if you could, expand on that a little bit, just because I know that there's, a lot of people who hold on to friendships that, they feel maybe guilt about, letting go, because they feel like they owe something to a person or something like that. And I was just wondering if you could maybe expand on that blog a little bit, because I think that's something that a lot of people would want to hear about and would resonate with them.
yeah, sure, not a problem. So I think people feel like just because you were close to someone, you have to always be that way. And the reality is, man, we just grow apart, and that is fine in an organic process. But sometimes a person, for whatever reason, does something to make it very difficult for them to remain friends, for you to remain friends with, And in that article, I talked about the legal stuff. That was a big thing for me growing up. Because of where I came from, you get friends from a certain environment, and some of them don't outgrow that stuff. And I don't have many friends from my old neighborhood anyway. But the one friend I did, he kept bringing his gun places, and then he went to roll some weed in my car, and I said, okay, it's a problem. And then I opened up the glove compartment one day, and some weed fell out, and I said, okay, now you've got to go, buddy. Like we are the same age, and you are not getting it. Like, this is no way to behave. We're it, right? So just stop hanging out with them, stop doing stuff. You got to get rid of friends who aren't happy with your progress, and they actively kind of detract from what you've done. We call them haters. That's the collective, or that's the common, colloquial term
Yeah.
for it. But with any friend that that's not happy, and look, and they don't actually have to be. I actually don't need you to be like super happy for me, but when it's like actively like questioning or downplaying the results, I'm like, okay, yeah, you gotta go. Like
It
that's not.
reminds me, a lot when when I was reading that of what one of Jordan Peterson's rules in his book is, and he's got a new book coming out next month, which I'm super
Oh,
pumped
nice.
for. But he's got a rule. I forget it exactly, but it's something like hang out with people who want the best for you. And sometimes that's really really hard when you look at people and what you say, like when something's going bad, it's almost like they're happy about it, and then when something is going good, like they're unhappy about it, and people hold on to people like that in their life. And you shouldn't. You gotta support. You have to have people who support you and support what you're doing. And when people support your bad habits, you're going to be more in a position to continue those bad habits. And
Absolutely.
if you're in a position where you have some good habits and you're establishing when people are hating on them, then you're going to be less likely to establish those habits. So I thought that that blog really really resonated with me, and I thought you put a lot of good intention in there, and there was a really good message.
Hey, thanks. I really, I just try to take what I've experienced and break it down into a way for other people to digest it. I figure if I do that, then I'm in a good position, and I have a pretty good chance of helping someone.
Yeah, I think so too. And one thing too, I wanted to ask you about, I know we got about 10 minutes left or so, is what are you eating right now? What's your workout routine like? Like I know that it seemed like you were pretty big into intermittent fasting for a while. Like, are you still doing that? Are you still
Still, oh,
yeah,
it is great, man. So you know what's funny? I've done all this research and figuring out kind of the best ways to slim down and lose fat, and there's contradiction in everything, and the contradiction is interesting. But if you focus on what everyone seems to kind of converge to, and there's a lot of people don't realize they're there, like they don't know they're on the path, but they are all some things people all converge to without knowing. For example, we know that one of the best ways to build muscle, if not the best way, is to lift really heavy weight, like weight you can only move like 6 times in a motion, and consume a lot of protein, or consume, and then someone refines it and goes, it's got to be some bit per pound or whatever, right? But intermittent fasting is one of those things that all the knowledge kind of converges on it. That it doesn't, it's why I think it holds the secret to why people can't figure out why a calorie is sometimes a calorie and sometimes it isn't. Well, it makes perfect sense depending on when you eat. If you're in your fasted state, yeah, you can probably get away with a little bit of something before your body does something with it. But if you're not, uh, your body's gonna hold into it, not burn it. Intermittent fasting also is really simple, and I say that just to highlight the idea that with intermittent fasting nowadays that you have a feeding window and then you don't have a feeding window, right?
and how long did you go for, Ed? Did you go 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours?
I started when I first started because I got to do everything hardcore. I started an 18/6 and sometimes a 20 hours not eating, 4 hours on.
No.
And then I realized, man, like that's just like I'm all about one of the reasons I don't fight is I'm all about a life balance at this point, and a 24 and an 18/6, that is hard. 16/8 though, I still get a pretty good benefit because the rest of my diet is so together.
Right.
But what I'm doing now, the IF is pretty much a staple, and on top of that, I keep my processed, like, to me processed food is basically booze, right? Like I don't drink booze anymore, so the hardest thing I put my body now, it will be something that is not cooked, like 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 some junk food. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, junk food's a great example. I love an ice cream cone in the summer,
Yeah.
but it's like one cone a week, and it's always the day I worked out.
And,
So
and do you track your calories, Ed? Anything like that, or?
no, no, no. I tried to track calories, man. I'm just not. No, that's not a detailed guy. Instead, you know what I started doing, and it's made a really big difference. Is I have an odd like I know my BMR is right, my basal metabolic rate. I know what that is, and I understand that my TDE, my total daily energy expenditure, goes up when I work out, so that gives me a little bit of a buffer. It also raises a little bit when I consume as much protein as I should. So what I focus on is my protein consumption, along with a protein shake with some fiber in it, and staying hydrated. If I do those things, I tend to eat. One, you're not hungry. That's the big thing. Uh, Two, you only have a certain window to eat anyway. And I'm not really looking to gorge myself when I eat. It's not like, oh goodness, we can finally eat. Bring on the Doritos. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like, okay, it's breakfast time. Let's have some eggs, some bacon, and some coffee, right? So once you get high fat, high fat, high protein, and no processed carbohydrates, right? Dinner, I made sure I modified my dinner because she loves to cook, but it's good. It's all good food. Like, none of it's trash. But there'll sometimes be like lots of potatoes, for example. So I'm like, okay, if it's gonna be potatoes or rice, I know that is a bit counterintuitive. That has what is the word? Glycemic index, that has a high glycemic index, and that's going to make the insulin trigger, which is going to shut off my fat burning and stuff. So better to eat that when it's going to be dinner a little earlier in the night. So I end up, what's the best word for it, cheating and gaining a few extra hours in my IF to make up for it. So it's little stuff like that, but in terms of counting calories, no, it's very intuitive.
So you
Is
have
what
like
I
a set template, but you're not like a prison to it. Like you basically try to do like the 16-8 thing. You try and it sounds like you try to get about, a gram of a protein per pound, and
yeah.
then you're a little bit flexible. As long as like you hit your 16-8 and you hit your 200 grams of protein, you can be a little bit flexible. Like, is that
And
is
and
that?
between that, I work out like a madman still. Like, I mean, I don't work out like I got a fight coming up,
Yeah.
but I still like I got my gym in this morning. In fact, I go to the gym almost every day. I've tried. It's been hard during the winter, man, because I live on top of a hill, and but then I got some body weight stuff. So every day I'm trying to move, because I'm always trying to, one of the things I figured out in my quest for fitness and lower body fat is after a certain point, you're not really going to lose the fat working out. It's just not going to. You have to control your diet,
Yeah.
and controlling your diet is, I'm finding, much more simple once you take care of the big wins. If a man made it, don't eat it. I don't drink any calories. I have a case of diet sodas, and that I can drink that because there's no sugar, and then coffee.
And you're working out, like, can you describe your workouts? Like, how frequently are you doing? Are you doing weights? Are you doing cardio? Are you hitting the bag? Are you doing mobility? So, like, what does it look like? Like, what does a typical week look like, would you say?
Right now, I haven't been up to my boxing gym in probably a month ish. But what I've
Okay.
been doing is, I have a performance gym I kind of go to, where I have access to a circuit bike, well, an assault bike,
Nice.
and a weightlifting program, and some a vibro plate to do some jumping, and some places for like sprint movements. So that kind of agility work, an agility ladder. That's like where I go early in the morning. Then I'll come home, have some breakfast, and then a lot of times, because it's a bonding activity, I'll go to the gym with my girl,
So
and
you so you work out on empty stomach usually, Ed?
always.
Always. Okay.
I always time my workouts in the morning. That's another great little cheat trick, because when you are in a fasted state, and you work out, your body is going to like your body's going to get the energy from somewhere, right? But
Yeah.
now it's in a position to I wish I could remember the word. So the verb of lipolysize, lipolysize. It's going to mobilize some fat and then eventually use it to burn. And it's not as efficient as glucose. I feel.
Ketones. So when you don't have glucose, then your body makes ketones, and that's why some people are a big proponent of the ketogenic diet, and they feel like their brain runs better on ketones than on
Yeah.
glucose. Yeah.
Which, if I remember right, what there was a study that that's kind of how the keto diet was originally intended for to treat children with autism because
Yeah,
the
with epilepsy, there's a lot of that's it's still a
epilepsy. That's what it
for
is. Yeah.
treatment. But even other, neuro psychiatric disorders like autism. I mean, some people do feel that it does really help with behavior control. Like not only even just for autistic kids, even people like everyday people who have depression or anxiety or just like impulsive types of behavior. They do find sometimes that that ketones and the ketogenic diet can be really good for that. And on that note, Ed, I hate to do this, but our hour is closing up. It's been a wonderful conversation. We've chatted about so many different subjects. I'm sure I'm going to get lots of people asking me to have you back on so we can explore more of your subjects and expand a little bit on more of your blogs and your books. So on that note, can you just kind of tell everybody where they can find you, a little bit about your books and how they can purchase those?
Yeah, I'm Ed Latimore every single place on the internet. My website is edlatimore.com. My Twitter handle is Ed Latimore. My Instagram handle is Ed Latimore. My Facebook Ed Latimore. So wherever you want to look me, you go to the Amazon Ed Latimore. My books will come right up there. I am everywhere is Ed Latimore. So if you want to look something up and contact me, and I respond to every single person. And if I don't respond, it's just I didn't see it. But whether it comes to the Twitter or the IG or my newsletter form, messaging form on my website, I respond quickly, or I try to respond.
Awesome. Well, Ed, thanks so much again for answering all my questions and for having me on. You've been an amazing guest, and I'll let you know when we put this one out, and hopefully your viewers will definitely like it.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, we'll see you soon, Ed.
All right. See ya.